Hey everyone, Board Game Brody here with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table like Finding Atlantis. It's a deduction game by Hyber and Synapses Games. This is a race game where players are, facing off against each other to explore the ocean, trying to uncover secrets of what's in the deep, but more importantly than the treasures and exploring the map, the players will need to find the sunken city of Atlantis, and the player who finds it wins the game. This is the game setup here. The game uses an app that generates different ocean maps to change the game up every time that you play. There is a deck of artifact cards shuffled and placed out here. These cards can be gained by players to take super powerful actions, one-time actions, and each player starts with a paper grid hidden behind their own player screen. Each player chooses a color and will have a submarine of their own color, as well as all the other players, as well as possible mine tokens of all colors if you're playing that variant. Each player starts with 8 action cards of their color. You can optionally decide to play the game less aggressively and take out cards to the ones that lay out mines that, blow up other players. 2 captain cards are then dealt out to each player, and each player chooses 1 to keep and 1 goes back into the box. This gives each player an ongoing ability that the other players can't do. The app really runs the game for this, as it will explain the rules and tell you, whose turn it is. On your turn, you take up to 2 actions, and the app will count these actions as you play out your cards doing them. You'll be tracking information on your grid, but the app will also have the real information from all the players, knowing everything that's going on, including the locations of every single submarine. In the game, you'll be trying to move around so that other players don't know where you're actually at, and then you can take different types of actions to give you information about what's on the map. If another player knows where you're located, then they can take the information gained from your turn and know exactly where on the map this information is referring to, and then they will be able to gain that additional information on top of what they gain. I would also encourage players to try to do this because it will cost you less actions yourself to figure out things so that you can gain insight without using your own actions, but instead see what everyone else is doing. You can play on different size areas, but the grid of the ocean is either a 6x6 grid or you can play on an 8x8 grid. The app will randomly assign starting locations, and then for the first time each player will then move once so players don't know exactly where they're at the beginning of the game. After that, you have 2 actions using your cards in your hand to do different things, but overall trying to find all the squares of Atlantis and where they're located. This will be 4 spots on the small map and 6 spots on the large map. There will also be artifacts placed out where you can find that will give you those powerful actions and kind of help you win the game. Let's go through the cards so you know your possible actions and then put everything together after. First, these 2 cards here are the movement cards, and you will scan them, and then secretly, without the others looking, you will tell the app in what direction you want to move. You will track this on your grid with your submarine token. Also, make sure that the compass on the grid matches the compass on the app. You can always move without these 2 movement cards as well. You can click a burn button on the app and then discard that card, and then burn that card to then move. But this way, your movement can be seen by all the other players, and you will click this button, flip your card over, point the compass in the direction that you want to move, and move there. And I know what you're thinking. How does this app scan the card to know this information? Well, I'm not 100% sure, but it does a really good job at scanning the cards to know what it says, and whatever it says, it will happen. So it knows. Just make sure on these type of actions that you remember the way you hold the card to scan the card will affect the direction to move, so that they are a tad bit different than those other movement cards. Next, the sonar cards. It gives you information on the topography of the ocean floor. When playing this card, it will list if you find seamounts or deep ocean in the 8 spaces that surround you. This is important because the spaces with the city of Atlantis present and the spaces with the artifacts on them all have seamounts on those spaces, plus they have seamounts to its north, south, east, and west. So you can deduce where the spaces are that have important stuff. The spaces with the city of Atlantis and artifacts on them are referred to as traces of civilization. Next is the Jelly Rod. This card will scan the 2 adjacent spaces on opposite sides of your submarine for traces of civilization, meaning City of Atlantis spots or artifact spots. In the pirate mode, which adds in the mines, this card can also confuse traces with the mines, so be careful. Make sure you point your compass needle in the direction desired when scanning this card. Next is the Explore card. If you know you might be in a space that might hold the City of Atlantis or an artifact, or really you can do this randomly as well, it will explore the current space that you're on. If it is an artifact, you will gain it by drawing an artifact card, adding that card to your hand. If it is the City of Atlantis spot, then it will tell you and you will mark that on your map. And if nothing, then it'll tell you that there's nothing there. The next card is, if you're playing with the pirate mode, then the Drop Mine card will have you drop a mine in your current location and then move 1 spot to the direction of the compass needle when you scan it. If a player hits your mine, different things can happen. And in the mean mode, you can permanently have them discard a card. In the nice mode, they will have to maybe give you an artifact card, or the player has to discard a certain number of cards into their discard pile. The periscope will detect danger in the 8 spaces surrounding you, and this can be mines or sea monsters, which come when a player picks up an artifact. A sea monster appears in that spot. Captain cards are all different, and each player has a different one, but it will give you some type of additional information. These cards are fun and add in some asymmetry into the game. Lastly, the surface card is used when you want to pick up your cards, including your surface card, back into your hand. And you will do that. You'll place everything back into your hand to play again. Then the app will show your current location to all the other players, or maybe even show you where you are actually at, because the game can do that, some crazy stuff sometimes. Or maybe you just got confused and now you know exactly where you're at. Players will take turns performing 2 actions to gain more and more information, possibly causing problems to the other players. And whoever knows where the City of Atlantis spaces are located, they will need to go to one of those spaces, explore it with the Explore card, and then they will have to put it into the app. And if they are correct, they win the game. And, well, that's Finding Atlantis by Hyber and Synapses Games. It's an app-driven deduction game that gives all the players a chance to win the game. And what I mean by this is that you will see other players finding information. Like if they find an Atlantis spot, you will see that, and you can track them to know the area that you need to start looking in. And you have clues, and you have, a way to use or document or think about all the clues that you receive in the game, and it will help you make your actions to find the 4 or the 6 spaces where the City of Atlantis is at. The artifacts help you speed up the game so players can start finding Atlantis quicker. But again, if another player gains insight or an advantage of some sort through the artifact cards, it's just time until the other players know the quadrant or the idea of the area they need to go to explore, where the other player might have led them to where the City of Atlantis is. When it's your turn in the game, you will be limited by the cards that you have in your hand, and sometimes this will limit you to what you can do. Some players will try to use their cards and actions efficiently, while other players might be a little more liberal in doing just random actions here and there throughout the game. But what I have found that you do well in the game, I'd say mostly you find that you need to reset and resurface when you need the Explorer card back to use again. The captain cards also add a type of style that each player can adapt to their own playing to help them, play with the added ability to be more efficient in finding things. So in the game, each type of information that you find will help you, and you can do a lot of, sonar actions to get an idea of the terrain. And even when others do the sonar, you might be able to know exactly where they are at and gain information that they gather on their turn. Players try to make it so, other players don't know exactly where they are located, so that information that they gain is limited, and then, gives the active player the only information on that turn. That's the goal. Now, each type of information you find can help you, and you can do a lot of, sonar actions to get an idea of the terrain. And even when other players do sonar, you might be able to know exactly where they are at to gain additional information on their turn. And players, try to make it so players don't know exactly where they are located, so that the information gained is limited to them and gives, just the active player more information. I very much appreciate the work done with the app in this game. This game is the closest game I have played that uses an app well compared to the Lucky Duck games that are very much app-driven games. You can also add in AI players and play the game solo with 3 other additional AI-based players. The scanning of the app works very well. I had no problems with any glitches or anything. I felt like the app added more fun to the game as well and really helped explaining how to play when you're new to the game because it just spells it all right out. The components are pretty straightforward: wooden submarine tokens, bomb tokens, paper grids to write on, player screens for each player, and a lot of cards. Overall, I had no issue with the components. Would say that they are pretty basic, but they did at least have, shape of the submarines instead of just using cubes or something. Again, this is Brody with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We are new and working hard to bring to you videos like this one, so you know if these games are ones that you want to get to your own table.